Senzo Meyiwa murder trial has wrapped up for 2023. It will resume on the 22nd of January 2024 with the cross-examination of lead investigator Brigadier Bongani Gininda. Yesterday he told the court that there was no ulterior motive in the apprehension of accused number one. We take a look at events in the trial within the trial with our reporter Linda Mnisi, who's been following developments there for us. Linda, maybe let's start with the trial being now sat down until next year. Why?
You'll remember that, after this new trial started, the decision was that that particular courtroom that's been hearing the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial would be allocated just for this case. A retired judge was brought back to assist with this particular trial, which then makes sure that, everything runs smoothly and gets to the end of the trial quickly. But throughout the proceedings, we've heard quite a number of, sittings, especially when it does not happen like this in a normal trial. Because of the long time or the length of this particular trial, it was decided that we would sit for these many days and these many months. We've been sitting for quite some time. And the decision was that the proceedings will end tomorrow. They were scheduled to end tomorrow, the 1st of December, and then return in January. That's on the 22nd of January to continue. This, of course, is part of speeding the trial, given the number of delays that we've had. So we're here now. It was meant to end tomorrow, but ending a day earlier, and then subsequently we'll reconvene on the 22nd of January. So all of it really was to make sure that this trial gets ahead without any delays and without, of course, being hindered by other matters that would need to be heard in court.
And this as the lead investigator in the trial, Brigadier Gininda, whose name has come up so many times when it comes to other witnesses that have testified in the trial within the trial. What have we heard from him so far?
So we've heard from him quite a number of interesting points, right? You'll remember that there are a number of witnesses that mentioned him in how, particularly when, for example, the members of the National Cold Case Unit, the likes of Sergeant Mokhane, Sergeant Mohola, and how they basically came to arrest the accused and the duties that they executed in the investigation of this matter. They've told us about, how they've often contacted Brigadier Gininda, who gave them instructions on how to continue with information. And his testimony particularly was looking at that, what was said about him, but how the accused came to be arrested and how they got to this point. And one of the things that he's touched on is essentially the arresting strategy that seemed to have been used, because he told the court about, having received information and intelligence after this matter was assigned to the National Cold Case Unit in November 2018, which then led to them hearing about the suspects and getting information about the people that were potentially involved in this matter. This is now all the accused, how they did a cold case analysis, which would then, show some other cases that they were involved in, cases that had gone cold. And that's when, information was followed up on. They were arrested for those cases that had gone cold, and continued with investigations. And if you look at the time, for example, that Muzi Sibiya was arrested, he was arrested on the 30th of May. This is now way before he was charged for the Senzo Meyiwa murder. Investigations continued. He made confession statements before even being arrested for this murder. It was only in October 2020 that he was now formally charged with the murder of Senzo Meyiwa, and then appearing the next day. So he's gone through, that particular testimony, and has also looked into some of the allegations that came out. You'll remember, with the trial within a trial, we're dealing with the admissibility of those confessions, right? And one of the things and the legal requirements is to determine whether they were done freely, voluntarily, in sober senses, and in sober senses. And one of the things that the accused had said was that they were assaulted and coerced into making these confession statements. He was accused of having been part of some of the assault, and he's come out to deny those allegations.
And that's just it. Detail for our viewers what it is he has said with regards to the alleged confession statements, but more so with regards to the alleged assaults, with regards to the alleged Mr. Mjiyaku, the legal representative who was apparently there, whom he apparently asked for his service certificate that he even produced in court, etc.
So in terms of the assault, one particular, allegation that stood out and he was questioned on was the assault, you'll remember, of accused number 2, Bongani Gininda, that allegedly happened at an open field in Orlando. And you remember there, Gininda had said that a white BMW, Gininda had arrived in a white BMW. He opened the boot and produced a document which was an already compiled confession statement. Colonel Rapadu, who was supposed to be the peace officer in this matter, was also present. They had picked him up from Baragwanath Hospital, and Bongani Gininda was essentially assaulted, according to him, assaulted and then forced to sign that confession statement there. And according to Brigadier Gininda, that particular white BMW was not assigned to their unit at the time when Gininda made this confession. He says that BMW was only assigned the following year in 2021, and this was a vehicle that was driven by Sergeant Mohola. He also went on to say that he never stopped. He was never there at that particular scene, which then takes us back to, the AVL report, which then indicated that there was never a stop. When Bongani Gininda was transported, in particular, with the Toyota Fortuner, there was never a stop at that particular open field and dumping site. So he says the AVL report is corroborating his evidence. That's according to him, that the AVL report is corroborating his evidence. He was not there. He also went to speak about, for example, when Muzi Sibiya accused number 1. The first time that he allegedly made admissions was when, you remember, he was with Sergeant Mohola after his arrest in Tembisa, where Sergeant Mohola made contact with Brigadier Gininda to say, this person has already started to make admissions. And he says from there, he asked that they come to Vosloorus, where he had a conversation with him, and then subsequently made arrangements to have the confession taken down in Diepkloof by Colonel Mboto. So he's detailed that particular instance of how that confession came to be taken. And yesterday you would have heard an argument right at the end of the proceedings, an argument around his alleged failure to safeguard the purity of that particular confession statement, and Advocate Mngomezulu there seemingly wanting to use Section 219 of the Criminal Procedure Act, which essentially speaks about how the confession only binds the deponent, and he says, in fact, Brigadier Gininda was not aware of the provisions of that particular section when he first listened to Sibiya's confession, thereby making it tainted and inadmissible. But Brigadier Gininda then hitting back and saying the only requirements, the legal requirements for a confession, is that it must be made freely, voluntarily, and in sober senses, which he believes was done. And the other part was to safeguard the rights of an accused person, which he still believes were done. So today we then entered into the issue around the warrants of arrest, when they were made and how they came about. Do we know if there's going to be another witness after Brigadier Gininda? Well, it's unclear at this stage, but if you look at the trail of evidence that the state has led so far, it started, with the people that took down the statements, your Magistrate Vivian Cornier, Colonel Mboto, Colonel Rapadu, and went on, even going as far as leading chain evidence of how people were booked out of police stations, taken for further investigation, how they ended up at certain places. And it looks like now the state has sort of reached, the height of their case in the trial within a trial by calling the person who was responsible for these investigations, the person that led these investigations. It's unclear at this point whether or not they're going to want to call another witness, but by the look of things, it may just be their final witness. They've already indicated that they will not be calling Ntokozo Mjiako, who allegedly represented Bongani Ndanzi when he made his second confession to Magistrate Konya.
Out of curiosity, was he at any point asked, because it's only one defense counsel that has so far cross-examined him and not fully even, but was he asked whether he had been following trial proceedings before he came to court?
No. He wasn't asked about whether or not he had been following proceedings. One of the things that he mentioned was, how he had obviously looked at the AVL report before, he gave it to the prosecution team. And, of course, because he is the investigating officer, Advocate Baloyi would often say that, they are given information, as and when, sometimes when it's presented in court, they got the information. So he then says, he's had a look at the report and given it to the prosecution team when that matter, arose in court.
Okay. So January 2024 on the 22nd?
Yes.
All righty. Linda Mnisi, thank you very much for that comprehensive report.